Faith. Now, that's a word people use a lot, but I don't think we truly understand what it means. Now, there's a ton of stories in the Bible that kind of describe this or illustrate this, but one that stands out that helps me in my walk with understanding the depths and the riches of what faith is the story of Exodus. Now, a lot of people know that story with Moses and the Israelites and the Egyptians and Pharaoh and how they're brought out of slavery, but the event that happens right after they actually come out of slavery and come out of Egypt is the thing that I find the most unique and has some really interesting things in it. And so that's in Exodus 14 if you want to read it yourself. But what happens is they come out of slavery, which is parallel to us coming out of slavery to sin. We start following Jesus. We're in this period where, man, we're rescued. We're no longer oppressed. We feel good. We have joy, right? And then we get to this roadblock, right? The Israelites felt that they were in that position, they were in that season, and then they get to the Red Sea, something they cannot cross on their own. And they're probably upwards of 1 million people at this time, including women, children, and men, most historians estimate. And so they get to this roadblock, they cannot cross that, and so then they start getting upset rather than trusting God, and then they look at Moses and say, did you bring us out here to die in the desert? Is it because there wasn't enough graves back in Egypt that you brought us out here so there'd be an easy burial? And so they start griping and complaining, which really is no different than us when we hit those roadblocks, right? And when that happens, Moses then pleads to God and says, hey, save us, right? And in that instant, in Exodus 14, God says a beautiful thing. He looks down, he says, the Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. I think that's a beautiful verse that really illustrates the beginning of faith, the beginning of a relationship with God, because he pretty much says the Lord will fight for you. The way you enter into the family of God is when you surrender and when you trust that God is the one doing the fighting. God is the one that has gained victory over sin and over death and over Satan and over hell. And so you understand that, you recognize that the Lord will fight for you, and then your only job is to be silent. Your only job, you have one job, and that's to surrender, to give up, to be silent, to not do anything. Now, what's interesting is he doesn't leave it there. He doesn't say, okay, now sit there and I will take care of this. He says that truth, and then he says, okay, but keep moving, because he's going to do all the work, but you have to walk and enter into faith. He's the one that supports it. He's the one that does it, but you can enter into that covenant and that joy by walking into it. And so he says walk, and what he does is Moses puts the staff in the water, and the water shoot up. Now, the Red Sea is on average, I think, 1,600 feet deep, and it has deeper and shallower in different areas, but it's on average 1,600 feet. So if you're saying that the water shot up to the point of the ground becoming dry in front of you, you're probably talking hundreds of feet on your left, hundreds of feet on your right, and you're also talking the fact that you're walking down almost like a mountain into the depths of the sea, and that's what they have to enter into to be saved. Now, I think when we hear about that, or when we see the movie or Sunday school of the water shooting up, we think that's the victory and that's the amazing climax. It is, but I don't think it would have been that joyful at that instant for the Israelites. Now think about that. If you could hop in the DeLorean, Marty McFly style, and go back there, right? I think I would be petrified. I think I'd be absolutely terrified if I had to walk in there. Why? Because I have to have 100% trust that God, who just did something I've never seen done before, is going to sustain it. Every foot you take that's more towards the middle of the sea, the more you're hanging yourself out to dry if he doesn't come through. Right? Does that make sense? And so think about that with how faith operates. I will fight for you. You have only to be silent. And then we have to put ourselves in a position where we say, yes, I really believe that. If you don't come through, think about that. To the Israelites in the middle of the sea, if God does not come through, it comes crashing down on them. If he lets go or something, and it comes crashing down on them, and they die and they perish. And so they had to put themselves in a position, right, where if God didn't come through, they would perish and they were undone. And to me, that's the essence of faith. It's a faith, and it's a trust and a reality of the fact that God will come through, and we have to put ourselves in a position where we say, hey, if he doesn't come through, which he always does, right, then I'll be undone. And so think about that in your own life. What's your Red Sea? That's a question I would ask too. What in your life are you not risking? Are you not trusting God with? What do you need to give up? What do you need to enter into saying, hey, I don't know what this is going to lead to. I don't know what's tomorrow's going to look like. I don't know what next year is going to look like if I make this decision, or if I apologize to this person, or if I stop doing this. But I do know that God's going to come through, because here's the beautiful truth of that text. He does. They put themselves in a position where he has to come through, and he doesn't fail them. He comes through because the God of the scriptures can be trusted. He is a God of covenant. He renews and restores and saves his people because he is a God who can save, and he's mighty, and he has a strong arm, as Isaiah likes to say. And so what is your Red Sea? And do you see faith like that, putting yourself in a position where God has to come through because he does, and he wants to save you, and he wants to bring you joy that is in the middle of that sea? Love you guys.